Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Beloved Presence podcast. Today, I'm going to talk with Stella Marie. She is on Instagram as Stella Marie is Here. She has a podcast on YouTube that's also Stella Marie is Here, Starlit Stories. This chat with her was a catalyst because it was me putting into words for the first time what's happening with my vocation and the interactions between Celtic ancestors and Indigenous land and how that's coming together for me. So Stella was really helpful in giving me safe space to talk about that and kind of vocalize it for the first time and vocalize a lot of integrations that were happening and have been happening since then. So this was a really vital podcast for me. I was very, very glad that I did it, and editing it was like a reminder of what that time was, and still happening, frankly. But it was a long time ago. It was like February, and both of us feel like a million things have happened since then, and so much has been going on and changing for us, and there's more integration for both of us, more rooting into this learning. So enjoy that. I am going to be hanging out on Samhain. So October 31st at 8 on Facebook Live. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to be going live and chatting about a new teaching that I am releasing on Samhain. It's called Being and Belonging. It is the intersection between ancestral healing and being and belonging and reconnecting to our body and re-inhabiting our bodies and the land and allowing magic. Again, there's this word in Irish called tor. What's the word in Gaelic? The word in Gaelic, fasanach. Fasanach.
Fasneach.
Fasneach. Fasneach. Gaelic is hard. Prophecy. It's the same word as tor in Irish. And when we hang out during Samhain, we're going to talk about magic. We're going to talk about being and belonging. We're going to talk about ancestral connection. And I'm going to pull cards for whoever wants it. I'm going to pull tarot. And tarot's just one of the tools that we can communicate with the unseen. All the oracle tools are ways that we can use Tor to communicate with the unseen. So I hope you hang out with me on Samhain, October 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Strength. Strength is 9th in this deck, but it's also 11th, which is justice. But strength is exactly what you think. It's fortitude and perseverance. And strength is also grounding and being able to accept our strengths, accept our gifts, and accept our talents and strengths and skills. Strength is allowing those to be expressed in our life. And then that's interesting because that's a big part of what being and belonging is about. Reclaiming our connection to self, reclaiming our connection, our embodiment of soul self and our embodiment of skills and talents and gifts that are spirit given and ours to express in the world. So strength, that was a good one. All right, enjoy Stella. I really enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully I'll see you on Samhain.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for bringing me onto this podcast. It is like, because my podcasts are quite structured and they are, quite structured, really. It's nice to go into a podcast that is more just spontaneous and flowing, because there's different reasons as to why we choose to speak online, you know, and the educational is just as necessary as the having a chat with friends, which is what I feel like listening to your podcasts, but having deep conversations that we're meant to be having. And that's why
Yeah.
I really enjoy having these chats online. It's really valuable for the part of us within us that feels like we're missing that community perhaps, and then we just listen to a little clip on Instagram and it anchors us back into that web, you know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so you were sharing about the languages you've been learning within the past year to connect to the
All
languages
right.
of your ancestors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is just that. It's very healing, and it is like, I really think it's magical. There's something changing in my brain, and there's something changing in the connection between my spirit and land in my body when I speak a Gaelic and Irish. And I'm really terrible at it. And I've asked people, like, publicly, correct me please, but like, if I'm saying it wrong, but correct me so that I can learn how to speak it properly. Like, direct me to an audio, or write it phonetically, because I don't know how to speak any of this stuff, and it's just mimicry almost.
Mm.
Do you know? But it's a mimicry that I can feel in my heart.
Yeah, no, yeah. With the where I'm from in Wales, the Welsh language it's still around, but growing up in school, it wasn't a main language where I am. It is still in some places, and it didn't feel like when I was a child, it felt natural, and we'd celebrate St. David's Day, which is on the 1st of March, is the National Day of Wales, and it all felt very I enjoyed learning Welsh then, but then when I became a teenager and I went into high school, it was uncool. And the older we got, it was just uncool too. And you know, if you really wanted to connect to Wales, it was just like you were studying something. It wasn't taught as if it was our culture. It was like a subject.
Oh, interesting. Right.
In the school I was from, I've got
You're
friends
right.
who are further out than I am. I'm in the capital city, so it's very industrialized and
Hmm.
rather similar to London in that retrospect. But my friends who lived further out were brought up on the myths and tales of like the
Nice.
Mabinogi, and the
Right.
Celtic tales were taught to them in school, and I didn't have that, even though I'm in the capital of Wales. It's really,
Right.
really bizarre. So I can relate to you, even though I'm brought up around the language that, yeah, it's a deep feeling, isn't it? It's like it's in here, and we know that it's there, and there's
Yeah.
something in us that kind of vibrates and rumbles when we hear it. And
Yes,
um
absolutely.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
language wanting to come out, I feel like, is and we just go blah, 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 blah. But
It's
it
it's true. Well,
they're
and in
complicated
Gaelic,
languages, the sounds and the words of the way the mouth moves and everything.
yes.
Big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the cha, like moha chleg. Like, there's no way that anyone is speaking that in English. That cha sound doesn't exist
Yeah.
in English at all. So I love speaking Gaelic when it's like mocha chleg, back
Mm,
deep in the throat. It's bringing something alive
yeah.
here into me again. You brought up, here we go. You brought up something that I is there a sense, or what is the sense in Wales of connection to the Indigenous practices? Like, connecting to my ancestors, there was a deep, deep grief and shame about their traditional spiritual beliefs and ways of being. And I'm like, what's your thought? Like,
It's
you're
yeah,
there, like, what's happening there? I'm so far
yeah.
removed from it, to be honest. Like, it's been generations on my mother's side that we've been on Turtle Island. My dad much more recently, but they're all of my ancestors are from Pratani.
Yes, yeah.
So
Wow,
what's
okay. Yeah, it's for me it's gonna be very different to other people. I visited my friend Dean, who owns a farm, and he actually bought the land a year ago, and he wasn't a farmer at all, and he got this calling to re-indigenize himself in a sense to the land. And I went to visit him, and it's him personally as Dean the farmer, who's now got 6 peacocks and all of these pigs, and he's wanting to protect the local woodland around him. His answer to this question would be very, very different to someone who is in the city. So it's so personal, because the idea of having an Indigenous practice that's from here, that's connected to the land, is almost a complete fantasy for most people, really. It's a very new concept and idea, but we've got different movements, pagan movements and witchcraft movements, druid movements, but they're all like mystery schools, and it takes a little while to kind of find yourself in them, which is it's sad because of their nature-based practices, but it's also a very mysterious and magical kind of journey that, you know, I feel that I'm on, because I was like, whoa, this stuff's still happening. But in my primary school, actually, we did something that a lot of other schools didn't do. I've asked my friends and they didn't do this, but we have a celebration called the Eisteddfod. Have you heard of the Eisteddfod?
No.
The Eisteddfod,
Eisteddfod.
yeah, the Eisteddfod, or the Gorsedd is
Gorsedd.
Welsh word, and it's got 2 D's on the end, which is like a the like a V, but with your tongue in the middle.
The
Gorsedd.
the Gorsedd.
Yeah, and that is
Gorsedd.
the name of a festival celebration that we do, that actually is to initiate the bards, who in the ancient world were a very highly valued spiritual leader of of poetry and storytelling.
Right.
And in Wales, we have a yearly celebration where we celebrate this, but it is actually a reinvention that hasn't got anything to do with what our ancestors actually did.
Okay.
Because we don't know, because we don't actually have the evidence.
Oh.
In the early 1700s, someone called Iolo Morgannwg, he came along and was like, this is what we should be doing.
Okay.
And that's how the Druid order today is what it is. And in primary school, we celebrated that. And I remember it's really cool. I remember all the lights going off every year in the assembly hall. And the whole day we have been sharing our poetry and our songs and our music and doing dances. And at the end of the day, the bard would be awarded as the bard. And we were in primary school, you know, and all the lights would go off, and pupils dressed as druids on either side would like carry these candles, and we'd give the bard a trophy then that would go up in the school hallway. And it was just really mad and mystical and bizarre, and I didn't think about it. I just completely forgot about it until I was reintroduced to Celtic spirituality, and I was like, we did that? Like, what was that about? Like,
that's amazing. I love that. Now, we talked about or briefly about the direct knowing. Like, do you know, like, that's what I'm assuming. And by the way, I don't personally feel any connection to Wicca. Like, I don't resonate with it personally. It doesn't speak to me. What's his name? Aleister Crowley and Gerald Gardner. I'm not resonant with that. But do you think that that's what's happening, is that we're reconstructing through direct spiritual knowing, or what do you think is happening?
Yeah, interesting. I think if it is, yeah, it is a deeper spiritual knowing, because it's an organic way of living.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it happens to a select few. But over the past like few years, I've really noticed it just even people who aren't perhaps outwardly spiritual or outwardly practicing anything. There's a lot of people around, even around the world, like wanting to come back to farming and owning farms and having their own vegetable gardens and things like this. And I think it is, yeah, it is in a knowing, but with the specific practices and rituals that we're doing today, we are creating them to fit with the world that we know, which I think is like so
Right.
important.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So they're appropriate to our lives now. Um, I feel like it's spirit speaking directly through land. That's how I experience it. The big nod from Stella. Yes. You can concur, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, like I was brought up in the city and I've recently moved out into more of the sticks, like into nature, and yeah, it's beautiful because I always had a connection to listening to the land and like trying. Like I feel there's a lot of witches being born in the cities because of it and bringing that nature into us. And then connecting and speaking with the spirits there, like bringing stuff into our altars, because we're not out there. But now I am out here. It's yeah, I've really, I know what I'm doing a lot more, and I
Mhm.
know why I'm doing it, and yeah, it's yeah.
I resonate with that. I know what I'm doing more and I know why I'm doing more. And it's for me a result directly of connecting with land through my body and listening, and also just accepting that what I'm receiving is real and true and helpful and wisdom. Do you know what I mean? Like I spent 45 years thinking that it was my own private little fantasy imagination. And the moment that I started to share it with the world, like common dream, share it with the world and trust and have faith that this is real wisdom, everything started to change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so what just came to mind then was listening to you speaking on one of your other podcasts about the magic of words, and I
Mm.
wanted to ask you about that and how like channeling basically is like a very new kind of way of describing this like inner inspiration that's coming through, I feel. And I haven't really spoke to many people actually that are talking about the magic of words and that understanding of the language, and that um yeah, on the similar path to me right now, because we're not there knowing it. Like we're like, "Oh, I want to understand more of the language and speak it," and I feel like we've both got that same excitement at
Yeah.
the moment. But yeah, like do you do any sort of like song or poetry or storytelling or any like specific creative ways of using the language? Just because that's something for me that is
Mhm.
that's coming through at the moment.
That introduction or little prayer in the beginning
Mm.
um is a result of spirit connection. Like I have recently started to talk publicly about the fact that I speak to the dead, that I am in conversation with spirit, channeling mediumship, and that is a direct encouragement from spirit to create a prayer in the beginning that encompasses what is important to share and honor in what I'm doing now. So that definitely is. I also write fiction, but since the last year or two of an evolution, the story that I have been writing on needs to be rewritten because what I knew before is completely different now. Like, I don't know how you ever get finished with a story because it's like as I learn and grow, the story changes too. So I don't,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's it. That reminds me of like because the traditions of the Celtic people here in Britannia and Ireland were oral traditions. So
right,
perhaps there was a sense of it is always changing.
right, yes.
And
Actually, that's, yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's interesting how
I go
writing solidifies it and creates almost a rigidness around truth,
Yeah, because
so
truth
to
is ever
speak.
changing. It is like the
Right.
humans need to control and contain. And
Oh my God.
I'm
That's,
realizing this right now as well. Yeah.
yeah.
And
We're having like, and how I felt about you sending me that Instagram note
mm,
and how it felt so present. Like, I've learned like our voices are literally our spirit speaking into the world of form. So it's
mm,
why words are so powerful, is because they are magic making, they are world changing. They
mm,
literally go out and vibrate out into the world of form. So they're very, very powerful, which
yeah.
is, sorry, it's where the you're speaking about the collective dream or the common dream like kind of landed in me about, oh, I have to start sharing my spiritual views. Like I have to share it. Even, and I'm scared. I'm scared about it. I'm scared that I'm going to be rejected. I'm scared that I'm going to be scorned and ridiculed and humiliated and despised. And but I have to do it as a bridge, like we talked about.
Mm,
Like like I have a responsibility to fulfill my purpose here, which is literally to speak always that land and spirit are inseparable, fite futa.
fita futa. Which language
That's
is that?
Irish. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fite futa. Yeah, and you know what it means. By the way, I just want to say I began my learning journey with a book. It's called To Speak to the Trees, by Diana Beresford Kroger. She is an Irish Canadian who was born and raised in Ireland. And have you ever heard of braiding sweetgrass?
Yes.
Okay, so I hold those two together as like
Oh, wow.
Bibles. They're like,
Yeah,
one is
yeah.
Indigenous and the other one is Celtic.
Yes,
And
yeah.
they both have the same message, but Diana Beresford Kroger uses Irish in her. She teaches a lot of Irish, and they're heartfelt, land connected Irish words. Like
Mm,
Mohatiat was the first Irish word I learned, and then found out that Mohacheg is the Gaelic same word. Anyway, I got really off topic there. What was I saying?
the bridge, maybe. I speak. That was
The
one
bridge.
thing I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to.
speaking. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking it into the world, and sharing it. And I
Mm,
had I had the misunderstanding that there needed to be consensus before I spoke my truth, that I needed to make sure, and it's partly a fear, and it's partly a people pleasing, and it's partly not wanting to be rejected or scorned or humiliated. But that's not how creating the collective dream works. That's not how it works. Like I have to have the courage to share, and then together, back and forth, we decide together what this collective dream is. We decide together what the reality is going to be. And I speak spirit into the world, into land. And then there's this Christian stuff that I've had to decolonize my mind, and I'm still doing it all the time from Christianity, because I think in North America, I don't know what it's like in the UK, in Wales or whatever, but we have a really terrible kind of evangelical, weird Christian thing going on over here. And
mm,
it's terrible for me to realize I'm using the same words as them, spirit,
mm,
and we're not doing the same thing at all, but I could be seen as being that
mm,
kind of presence in the world. And I mean, I don't know what to do about that. I just realized, oh, that's
mm.
happening. Great.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, but yeah, I was on about my primary school yearly celebration that was Druidic. It was so strange because we celebrated Christianity really mainly. So
Right.
it was it wasn't it's not a religious or spiritual thing now. It's more in our primary school anyway. It was more like a celebration of the day, but the rest of the time it was yeah, for Christmas, we would celebrate the Jesus birth story, and we would reenact it, and we would sing hymns in assembly every day before school.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to a Sunday school every now and again, but it was because it was the school holidays and it was a break and it was somewhere for me to go. I wasn't born in
Right.
a Yeah, like I was born around it and brought up around it, but my family and the families in my neighborhood weren't very religious. But I did go to college with a friend from South Carolina, and he spoke to me a lot about the Bible Belt and how the buildings are placed to all around the sacred, like the churches and the cathedrals and stuff. They are taller, and buildings can't be
Mm-hmm.
built higher than the Christian buildings. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, I didn't know that that was a thing over there.
I didn't know that was a thing either.
Really?
I didn't
Yeah.
know there was laws about it. You couldn't do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Where he's from in South Carolina, you walk around and you can just see the churches everywhere because the houses and the flats or the shopping malls, nothing can be built higher than.
Wow. That's interesting. And what a like I feel like Christianity over the past few hundred years like hoovered up every expression of spirit that was like allowed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it did definitely hoover it up. I've just at the moment I'm learning about the history of the Druids and the history of the Roman Empire and the Catholicism, and trying to wrap my head around all of these things so that because I really enjoy talking about this sort of stuff, and where I get anxious about my expression is when I'm talking about the history, um because historians really like to have a go at you if you get a fact wrong. And
Oh,
for me, I've experienced that online anyway, is people who are really into history are like, no, you've got that wrong, and completely missing the points in why I'm talking about it. So now I feel like I have to know the history before I can even comment on certain things. But it's hard because our history is so messy, and
yeah.
it doesn't really make sense anyway. So
And it's what we know so far. Like history and science, I think, are very similar in that way, that what we know is only what we know so far until new evidence will come up that will change our understanding of it. Like how has history evolved since I went to school? Do you know what I mean? Like our understanding of history has changed just based on what we know or what we're learning. So I don't think anyone has a gatekeep around what the truth is about history.
no, but
So,
in the academic world, people really do feel that, and it's funny because I've had experiences with the land and in nature and the spirits of the land, and psychedelic experiences, really meeting these spirits in
mhm.
profound ways. And I feel like I learn history through that. Like I learn, and I start to understand and see the world in the way that my ancestors did, by having that deep connection to the natural world.
Yeah.
Um, and that's more so what informs me on how to be than
Yes.
the written history.
Right. And that's the like what I was saying about the direct ways of knowing versus like a westernized
Mm.
proof foundation where you have to like proof. I looked it up because it means actually the root is convincing. Like that's what proof is your desire to convince another of your truth. And that's what proof is when
Wow.
other people, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I get it now. Like, it's all set up to convince as many people as possible to your way of seeing. But there's lots of different ways for us to know, right? And
Yes.
and you and I are experiencing that this way of direct knowing from spirit and from the land is so powerful. And it's something that animists all over the world, indigenous people all over the world have been practicing for thousands and well, since the beginning. Like
Yes.
since the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, this conversation is just like deeply reflecting the conversations I've been having with myself and people over the past few days. There is this um yeah, this spirit is waking up. And in the you mentioned the podcast I did with Sam about Pratani. So if anyone is listening to this and you're not quite sure on what we mean by Britannia, but it's an old word used by the people of ancient Britain and around it to describe Britain as a whole before it was separated into Wales, Cornwall, Devon, Isle of Man, Scotland, and then Ireland is its own is its own culture, but the Britain is lots of different cultures, just in case
Right.
anyone was wondering about that.
Yes, thank you. I meant to bring that up earlier, but we got there. That's great. Now, is Crunia the word that the Irish used for themselves, or is that a word that was used for them by other people? Do you know?
I'm not sure about Crunia. No,
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, like one thing um I've noticed on my journeys sharing my this re-inhabiting to the land for understanding the history and all of that. One thing I've noticed is that there are major differences between the cultures here, and that there is still we're still dealing with a lot of trauma over
Mm,
things that we did to each other. Um, not and then also what our ancestors have done to the wider world, colonizing the wider world, as Europeans,
yeah.
but what we have done to each other, and I'm only just scratching the surface within the names and the languages of things and why they're called that, and when it is right for me to use those words and speak um, on that subject, especially with the Irish law. And it's wild because over the world, the pagan world is kind of like, in a sense, culturally appropriating Irish culture. And
Hmm.
I've had a lot of Irish people say this to me, and I feel the same with Welsh culture, but it is a taking of traditions and using it as this celebration and not knowing the origins of it.
Can you give me an example of how paganism is an appropriate? I don't disagree. I guess I'm just trying to understand. Um,
Yeah, the example I can give is from what someone was saying to me when I was sharing a post on so here in Wales, we have our own kind of Christianized versions of the old pagan holidays, but they were all Irish holidays. So the only traditions that survive today are actually Irish. So we've got
mm,
St. Bridget's Day, or
mhm,
Imbolc. So
mhm.
Imbolc is likely celebrated by a lot of people that don't even know its origins in Ireland. They kind of just think it is this kind of it's a way to latch on to something, and it is necessary
Sure.
actually. And at the beginning, wonderful. Like there's nothing wrong with us partaking in other people's cultures at all. I just think when we do, we should have that want to learn where it came from and why it became what it was, and that's where the cultural appropriation comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't really know
Okay.
that when I was practicing these things, and I've had Irish people message me and say,
Interesting.
"Hey, like we're still feeling really sticky about our past," and
Right. Yeah. There's a lot going on in Ireland still. So
so
what a
yeah.
stupid thing for me to say. But but I have to say that I don't know about participating in other people's cultures. I think for me personally, it's really important for us to all individually connect to our own ancestry. Just I found with my own experience, and that's all I know. That's all I can speak to. I don't know what other people are needing, but there was so much cutoff for me, especially on Turtle Island, just total cutoff. I'm not living on the land of my ancestors anymore. And in order for me to connect to land, I had to connect to my actual ancestors, and connect to my actual ancestral trauma and do all of that. I feel that if I had started to practice another land-based spiritual practice, that I may have gotten distracted away from healing my own roots Do you know what I mean? That I would have like been standing literally on someone else's ground, as opposed to, having to do the work, because it's hard.
Mm,
It's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's painful to do ancestral healing work.
mm,
It's very humbling. It's very humbling work. But
mm,
and the reason I bring that up is because I have been wanting to and called to reach out to Indigenous knowledge keepers for probably 20 years of my life, but I was always prevented from it until I went and connected to my own roots. And I think it would have been because it would have been an appropriation. It would have been an attempt to root into a culture that wasn't mine. Do you know what I mean? And now I feel that I have started to grow my own roots and can reach out in a more honorable way,
mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And I've also felt that well, actually I felt quite stuck here. Actually, I didn't think there was anything really here for me. For while I was going through my awakening, I got catapulted into the New Age spiritual movement,
Mm.
which actually made me feel like I needed other cultures to guide me. And I felt stuck here, wanting to leave and go to other cultures because I didn't feel that I could root here. And as soon as I started
Right.
to come to that second awakening, then that I can, it was more of a, oh, we can be guided by the surviving cultures, like the surviving traditions, which is I can see within you, you are bridging them together in this same way. And there is so much there are so many people within the Indigenous traditions today who are openly like wanting, like their whole lives are based around educating us who are trying to decolonize our minds. So it's really
Right.
hard emotionally, but in the world, it is waiting for us to do so. And we end up
Yeah.
having these like powerful conversations. And um, yeah, for me, having a social media page dedicated to re-inhabiting and re-indigenizing to the land here in Brittany, in Britain, I also need to be sharing Indigenous voices today, because as much as I do have that inner knowing and I can have that inner knowing, there is like hundreds and thousands of years of skill
Yes.
that I ain't gonna know.
Right. I
Um,
know.
and yeah,
Yes.
and this is why I actually really want to travel the world, so I can start to explore the different nature-based skills and crafts and folk
Right.
ways people have still got, which we don't have here. So over there, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that,
And it's, yeah. Like, why would I attempt to try and remake the wheel when land has been speaking to Indigenous nations here for like however long, 30,000 years, 50,000 years? We don't really know, actually.
yeah.
But yeah, there's so much wisdom available. And it was reconnecting to, Celtic roots that I realized how nourishing that culture is. How whiteness is bullshit. Like, it's this thin veneer of like nothing valuable, nothing nurturing, nothing. Like, it's nothing.
Mm,
As an identity and as a culture, it absolutely gives nothing. But rooting into and beginning my relationship with my Celtic ancestors was deeply, deeply nourishing, deeply enriching. And I'm going to cry because I felt seen in a way, for the first time in my life, in a way that I've never felt seen before. That all of the relationship with land that I'd kept private, my mystical, magical, life of meaning is very, very Celtic in its origin. It's very um apple fell from the tree, so to speak. Like, I was held and claimed by Celtic ancestors and claimed them in return because I felt seen and known for who I am in a way that I haven't before, ever in this
mm.
life.
Yeah. Wow. That's Yeah, there are so many people like feeling that right now. I don't know if there's more now than there was before, or if it's just that I've got the platform and I'm speaking to people. But um, yeah, it's like it is making me emotional as well because I've brought this. Like I'm in a sense feeling like I'm being a bridge and giving people an invitation to dive deeper into this and showing people as I learn and I figure it out myself, showing people that there is something to connect to and you can bridge your ancestral Celtic wisdom and with the wisdom of the indigenous peoples who are around you. And this is the dream, this is the new world that we need to be creating with each other. And yeah, it's like you say, like you say it's hard, like this ancestral work is hard. Do you feel like it gets easier? Like it gets easier because it just feels so right and so true. And then it's like releasing the shackles is like,
So interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
so
like um
um
go on.
well, the shackles, that's weird because I, like you, I don't know if this is just me growing and evolving, and so it seems different. There's way more people connecting and there's way more spirit here, or whether, there's actually something happening and the shackles are coming off. For me, the difficulty was the willingness to feel the unprocessed trauma of my ancestors. It's literal unprocessed trauma.
Mm.
And that's what's hard. If you're willing to do that, if you can sail through that and be grounded and not, be annihilated by all of that. I'm making it sound worse than it is because you only get as much as you can handle. I'm
Mm.
not trying to set out, you know,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
like this
it's
isn't this isn't to
yeah,
turn anyone
yeah,
away
it's
from
not
you.
not at
Yeah.
all. Not at all. But it's real. There is very real unprocessed trauma in my, like, I can only speak for my own direct lineage who literally denied their Celtic selves and identified with the oppressor, and
Mm.
then moved to Turtle Island and turned around and did the colonizing to the indigenous people here. So it's both of those, right? Like
Yeah.
the shame, like
Oh
the
God,
shame that my
yeah.
ancestors felt about themselves, then they delivered to indigenous peoples on Turtle Island, and I saw it happen in my own childhood growing up, and how my grandmother treated Métis people in Saskatchewan. Like I
Mm.
it's awful. It's awful. And so for on Turtle Island, anyone who's living on Turtle Island, especially, like I keep saying, witches and pagans, we have a responsibility to learn and honor Indigenous land.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's
Period.
beautiful work. And yeah, you were saying earlier, the more you say it, the more you speak it, the more these pagans and witches, people like us are listening. Like
Right.
you're connecting to them just by speaking it right now, like both of us are. And
Yes.
yeah, it is such deep work because it's a accepting, um, like it starts with accepting that we have made mistakes personally and then our ancestors have made mistakes and that's okay because we can move on through it together. And when we get over the hurdles, it's really liberating and it's dealing with the trauma, but that it's letting the spirit feel the liberation to push through that once
Yeah.
more. And that's where I think the ceremony comes into it, the celebration and the like allowing even through our shadow, which is the darker, the more uncomfortable side, also having the celebration and the ceremony come through with that twice as hard, which is something I'm really feeling at the moment that I want to start doing is celebrating with people. Um, but with this as the intention.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. And the fact that you brought up ceremony is like that's key. Dr. Dave is an elder that I'm in communication with who is on the spirit realm, he has a circle of learning. It's like it's a like a turtle lodge of learning, and it's a call for anyone on the earth who wants to bridge this and bring this spirit knowledge into the earth. But he says ceremony can heal everything, and ceremony is making sacred, being intentionally making sacred, so that we start this conversation with intention of making it sacred, any conversation. I was speaking with Boggs, another Indigenous creator on TikTok, and she's the one that told me, witches and witchcraft are pretty much all that's left of, or she thinks that it's what's left of Indigenous European culture or spirituality. And that kind of hit me. And then I had to cry a little bit, because I deeply resonated with that term. I prefer Cailleach just because I love that.
Yeah, Kelly.
But it's been denied. Do you know what I mean? Like Christianity denied it, like society denies it. It's much more prevalent now for you to call yourself a witch or to say that. But it's just interesting to me that it was an Indigenous person who brought that to my awareness. I'm like,
Yeah, the folk practices, especially like the folk practices that go off of the law that's been like passed down, and it truly is, and it's what we today call witchcraft. So yeah, I
right.
do agree with them. And witchcraft is a funny term because I have this conversation with my witchy friends a lot, like what really is witchcraft? Because I could call myself a witch and say I'm practicing witchcraft. I could be doing exactly the same thing as someone else who doesn't even know what that word means.
Yeah.
So it is surviving, and not even like as a movement, just as a natural way of being and a natural way of
Yeah.
living with the land. And yeah, Druidry is another one. We've got the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, which
Right.
is the Druidic order that I was talking about that brought in the Eisteddfod. It's like connected to that movement, the modern Druid movement. That is another like of like one of the only things we've got left. But it's not that we've got it left, because it's all being created at the moment. It's all actually very modern in terms of the movements that exist right now that you would join are modern, but they have that
Yes.
inner knowing. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
ritual and the ceremony is there to nurture that inner knowing together.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was watching a video about ways of knowing that was had Dr. Dave in it, but there was another Indigenous elder there who was telling a story, and it was a beautiful story of complaining about how we've lost our language and our culture and our spirituality. And there was an elder at the table that he was telling this, kind of complaining about this loss. And this elder thought that he was asleep and hadn't been paying attention, but he woke up and he said, you talk about what you've lost, but that wisdom is still where your grandfathers left it. And I was like, whoa, you know, oh. So yes, it's still there. It's still there, available for us. That never changed. There was no, that's our relationship, with land and spirit.
Yeah, I really truly feel like the new movement, that what we're feeling awakening is the further of the evolution of the individualization of the self on like an evolutionary and spiritual perspective of humanity. And we're seeing it happen here, where um we are we're disconnected from a bigger community of ceremony and ritual and spiritual practice. We're all kind of individualized, and what we need to do is keep pushing that in our personal connection and our personal need for doing whatever it is that connects us to spirit and joy, and to just keep
Yes.
nurturing and feeding that.
Yeah.
And because that is that inner knowing. 'Cause the more we know on the outside, the less we can truly listen. And yeah, this is what I feel like paganism is really, in witchcraft, because if you've got you could have like hundreds and hundreds of different types of pagan and witches, but there's one thing that they all have in common, and it is that there's nothing to call it, because it is a natural way of being. It's
It's
crazy
that.
to it's crazy to even try and label it because it's like
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't even know what to call it. It's being.
Mm, and it's
Well, I
beautiful.
call it beloved presence. That's what I call it, just because that's how I experience that in the world.
Yeah, beloved presence for sure. Yeah, yeah. 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 Are you going to be this year, have you got any like ceremonies planned or celebrations that you're going to be doing? Do you follow any of the celebrations yourself, or
I am a soul practitioner of all things, and I don't have any plans of doing anything. Do I have my own solstice ceremonies, and I have my own Grianstad Yaudi ceremonies, but they're just things that I do alone. It sounds
Mm,
so sad. I do them alone, but I mean
no.
it's exactly what you what you
Yeah,
say.
yeah, no, I was yeah, I it was funny because I was speaking to my friend yesterday or the day before, Victoria, and I was like, we should really like do stuff together. We should come together with our families and people we know. And I've been asking people who I don't know are really into it, perhaps, but people that I know, and I'm like, I want us to like come together and yeah, celebrate these things. And she was like, yeah, because like I just have my little candle and my little this, and we're just there on our own in our rooms with our little things, and we're just
It's true.
looking out over the window just like, oh.
We used to gather together in large groups, and
Yeah,
the energy has to be much bigger when it's when we're all gathered together, right?
yeah,
But we do what we can.
yeah.
Um,
But we're all connected through that as like
yes,
as well, isn't it? Like even though we're not together, we are connected through that. Like I'm gonna think about that now actually when I do like my candle on
interesting.
my own, like all of the other yeah, all of the other kind of solar witches and pagans. And I've been making an effort this past 2 years to get out into the community a bit more and meet some people within it. And yeah, it's been nice. And I'm feeling a calling now with my following to do some online events so that we can all actually like talk to each other and celebrate these things in the online sphere and have
Oh,
our
that's
own
great.
mystical little caves
Yeah, no, that's
sort
great.
of thing. I'm not sure how it's going to manifest yet, but it's an idea that keeps popping up. And
Yeah, yeah. I agree. There's got to be a coming together. I do think about gathering with others in the woods, but I have no idea even how to bring that about. Do you know what I mean? Just because all the people that resonate with me on this level don't live anywhere near me to gather in woods together.
mm.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I will watch and see what you figure out.
Yeah, that's why I want to create the online space, because what I figured with the difference between here in Britain and over in the Americas is there's just so much land space and nature over there that over here we're always a few hours away really from each other. If I wanted to create some sort of in-person live community with people all over the UK, everyone could easily get to the place within like 7 hours minimum, whereas a lot of the people I'm talking to um in America and Canada and mainly over there actually is very there's not a load of people in one spot, so people feel quite isolated, which is why I want to do the online event, so then people can
Yeah.
meet each other and connect with each other and be a bit like a bridge between a bridge between people, because I've grown my following really from sharing individual posts and not actually being in the moment speaking to people with my voice, which is who I really am. Um, not this one
It's
individual post someone might see. So
it's interesting that just before we got on, I was scrolling and you shared that on your Instagram about you're much bigger than the persona that you show on Instagram, and then I didn't get to finish it because I had to come on and actually talk to you for real. So yeah, that's of course you're much bigger than just the persona. Do you feel restricted by uh social media?
There are definitely restraints, but I don't let them change what I do or who I am. But they're definitely
Right.
there. I think at the end of that story that you were on, actually, I think I spoke about that, how like I I'm ever changing, I'm always
Mm,
changing, and I had to take a break from social media this week to be like, oh, I don't want to just fit to the demands of the algorithm and the audience because I'm always
right.
changing. And
Right.
one day I wake up and I feel like, oh, I don't actually want to talk about this subject. I'm not going to force myself to because it's a creative, like, and spiritual pursuit for me. That's the main
Yeah.
reason I'm doing this. And I've seen so many people fall into the, oh, well, they got this following because they spoke about this one thing, and then they like create this identity for themselves that's not them. And it's social media is very good at doing that, like for morphing you, but I'm not going to let it morph me.
Good. No, good. I would be sad about that because that's what's refreshing to me um, about you is you seem so present. And I'm not sure how you create your media, so maybe you're not, but it just you feel so present with what you share that you are 100% there
Mm.
in the sharing. So yeah, I appreciate what you do, and I encourage you to be who you are.
Yeah, and you. We just need to keep, yeah, as you said, speaking our just speaking our passions into the world and create this collective dream together. And this full moon as well, these past few days, like I've really noticed it for me personally anyway. I haven't been celebrating the full moon or like actively choosing to follow it, but I've just been like, and you just know.
It just happens anyway. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, you just know. And I've been like, oh, okay, this is quite a powerful moon at the moment. And the themes that have been coming through are just, yeah, sharing and talking and using our voice and using our language. And yeah,
Yeah. Can I
yeah.
ask you how you deal um with people coming for you? I know like I, I think that is the biggest fear I have about being fully authentic in on the internet in the public space is the fear of attack and of people coming for me. Like I know I'm going to get things wrong. Like I know I am. Like this is a weird, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
amorphous thing. So, but
I'm
I
gonna
don't, I'm
say what
afraid
yeah,
of that.
I'm gonna say what's not I'm gonna say what someone said the other day when I asked them this question. I asked the
Oh,
same that
did
you're
you?
asking me right now. Um, Lucas, I was on his podcast the other day. It's called Elements of Community, and he talks to people who are like building communities. And um, yeah, I was like, what? Because he said that he'll just try anything and he'll talk about anything. And I was like, so what if you get that wrong? Like, how do you feel about the mistakes you make? And he said that if he doesn't have people correcting him, he's probably not talking enough about what he needs to be talking about. Um,
Interesting.
and I was like, ah, right, okay, so there's like a preparation. Because I do get quite butthurt and like I feel with some messages when I read them, I'm like, that's directed at me, knowing that they're energetically giving that to me. Like it feels icky. It's not like, yay, come on. Like I don't love the conflict. I don't like the arguments. But now I'm just gonna be like, it's a part of the process. It's just another brick on the road to expression my truth. And those people, as soon as they
Okay.
judge you, they forget about it and they carry on with their lives. And it's yeah, it's about why I'm doing it and always returning to my intention. And I'm gonna learn way more if I'm open to people correcting me, my mistakes. But then there is a difference between people who are actually quite mean and cruel. And I think it's just kind of just having like some kind of magical metaphysical armor, really, and knowing that those people, we're just going to kind of like reflect back and like for me is like knowing that I'm protected,
Mm.
and just kind of, yeah, nurturing that protective bubble around me, because there are, if you are sharing yourself and a lot of people are placing their awareness on you and their thoughts and their energy, that is like quantumly people giving that to you. And
Yeah.
this is what I've realized actually is I can feel it when I share a video, and I notice this got some controversial comments. It's like throughout the day, it's really bizarre, but I can feel the presence of the other people who are aware of me. So I will say
Right.
that is a thing that does happen. And if you are you know, a witch and you do work with your energetic field and making that stronger, that doesn't matter because you've got that protective bubble
Core.
around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny because you don't, like, I have experienced that I don't know that I'm strong enough to handle it until it happens, and then I learn that I'm strong enough to handle it. And so I'm fearful of what I'm fearful of what I'm going to be hurt over, but that's stupid and a waste of time,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's all, and when it comes, it's always an in the moment thing. It's like you could feel like if I'm having a bad day, perhaps I could read a comment and it will affect me massively differently to if I'm on a walk and I'm having a really good day. Um,
Right.
so it's just about constantly realizing like I'm sharing this because I want to, and I can see, and I'm creating this dream. And often people, like someone the other day actually commented on a post and said, when I first saw your page and your posts, I really didn't like what you were saying, and I was like arguing like in the comment section. But the more I see your posts, I see your intention, and you seem like a
Huh.
nice person. And it's, yeah, when someone sees one thing that you've said, they're never judging your whole character anyway, and that's something I need to realize,
Right.
is they've seen one little aspect of me. They don't know me.
No.
I'm on a mission.
Wait, you're what?
I'm on a mission,
On
and
a
I'm gonna
mission. Yes,
and
yes,
I'm gonna
yes.
complete that mission.
Yes. Yes. I'm very envious of you understanding this so early in your life. Like I'm over halfway through. Do you know what I mean? And I just, like, I'm grateful for finally getting it now and for finally getting on board to do it, but I'm very envious of you knowing so early. Like, congratulations, good for you.
Oh wow, yeah, thank you. I do think like the whole world of, you know, of social media is like it forces you into that place of like my little brother's 16, and I really hope that they start to understand this as early as possible as well.
Yeah.
Um and I think it's like more necessary now than ever with the younger generations, especially, like to have these realizations sooner rather than later, because the world that we live in right now is really, it needs it, you know?
Yeah.
It really, yeah, it really needs
Well,
it.
I mean, we've kind of figured out that the way it's set up right now isn't working,
Mm.
right? Like it's not a collective dream, it's not a common dream. It's a dream, it's a great dream for a small amount of people, you know, but it's not working for a lot of us, and we can change that, and we
Mhm.
will with
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to touch on that I forgot with my something I've realized recently with my social media sharing, and because my little brother is 16 and he's within that social media world, I feel a little bit of a responsibility to be in there, making it a safe place for the youth and the younger
Interesting.
generations. Um,
Yes.
and this is something that stopped me from just completely abandoning it. I think for those of us who do feel a calling to use these platforms, it's because we need to be making it a safe space.
Good. Yes, exactly. Huh. Yeah, it isn't. It's interesting when, like, of course, I was here before the internet, and I love how social media and the internet has changed now to be, no, this is real life, and you have a responsibility to treat each other kindly on here. When it started, it wasn't like that. It was like this idea of, oh, it's just the internet, oh, it's just online, it's just social media, it doesn't really matter. And that fostered this idea that you could go and be an asshole and there was no consequence. Well, that's not true anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, and it's like it's being proven now that this really not great for the youth's mental health and that it's really damaging all aspects. So yeah, we do have a responsibility, and I just hope that yeah, we figure it out, because it's funny, it's like navigating this technological world. It's a completely new world of spirit in a sense, because
It
it's like
is true.
in
Yeah.
technology is like I heard someone the other day, Sophie Strand, she's a deep kind of feminine ecologist, and she speaks on the Mary Magdalene missing links through that, and she's just very connected deeply to the natural world. And she was commenting on how this was crazy, it blew my mind, but how the our technology is made out of crystals, and the crystals are made well, they're crystals, and we need to use them in the right way. Like, we need to still respect them by using the technology in the right way, because if we don't, it's like
Oh my
treating the
God.
crystals as slaves. And I was just like,
Oh God.
oh my God. Like, all those years I hated tech. I've been like anti-technology, anti-technology, anti-technology. She was like, no, it's
Oh
still.
no.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. So
And it's resonance. It's crystal technology resonance. And yes, speak kindly to your devices.
yeah.
Show them love and appreciation. Our
Even when
printer
they're
at work
freezing.
is, what's
Yeah.
that?
Even when they're freezing, when your
Even when
computer.
they're freezing, just give them understanding and acceptance. I understand you maybe need a little downtime right now. I Well, this is part of it, is these ideas and ways of being were like little fantasy things that I would just keep to myself. Sharing this is important. Sharing this idea of being kind to your devices, your electronics. Oh, it's so important. Ah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It's I feel like it's a nice kind of like launch off of the full moon. And this one, so my podcast at the moment, if anyone is listening, it is educational, and I'm choosing to speak to specific people on specific topics, um, but diving into mainly Celtic ancestry from Brittany and Ireland, but also I want to branch out into other Indigenous wisdom traditions. And I feel like you've got quite a little, like a little bag of kind of wisdom crystals, it feels, that you're bringing through you right now, and it would be great to carry on these conversations, build the
I would
stream
love
together.
to. This is new to me, reaching out to Indigenous knowledge keepers, and I have a connection to spirit, to an Indigenous elder, and I am unsure and uncomfortable about how I'm proceeding with this. And I'm allowing the Indigenous creators that I'm talking to kind of teach me, not kind of, I'm allowing them and asking them and hoping that they're going to teach me how the proper relationship, how to build this relationship honorably and respectfully and properly, because I'm not sure. I'm not
Mm,
sure how that looks or what's required or what's expected. So, and I've been kind of really clear that I don't have any Indigenous knowledge to share, that I am only like calling in Indigenous
mm,
knowledge keepers to teach me. Um, if I have any indigenous knowledge to share, it's how indigenous cultural and spiritual practice is
mm,
very similar to Celtic spiritual practice, that we definitely cross over, and there's very similar
mm.
processes.
I get what
Basically,
you I yeah.
I'm struggling here. I do struggle with this because I don't want to offend anyone with my ignorance. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm very aware of a fraught history
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this, and and I
I
just I
completely relate.
and but I want to share vision then about common dream in regards to this. Is I've had over the past several years a vision given to me over and over again of witches and pagans and other animists on Turtle Island being the biggest allies and support for Indigenous sovereignty and land back because of our shared spiritual and heart connection to land, that we all want the same thing.
Mm.
And that's what's leading me. And I'm just, I'm being
Yeah.
taught as I go.
Yeah, same. Literally, I could have repeated all of that. I could have said all of that. I completely get it. And I think like as long as we just just keep accepting that we don't know, then when we do get met with people perceiving it as ignorance, it's okay, because we are quite ignorant to a lot of things, and that is the
Yes.
process of decolonizing. If we don't speak about it, nothing's gonna get done.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
speaking about it.
Okay, thank you for speaking about it. Thank you. I've really, really enjoyed this. Let me know where I can point people to you. You've mentioned your podcast. It's great.
Yeah, just my Instagram account, Stella Marie here, and my podcast, which is also Stella Marie here. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.